Hello, everybody. All right, I want to get you started with your 1-point perspective project. And so I have a piece of paper, it's 12 by 12, and it doesn't have to be that size. I like it that size because I know that my ruler is 12 inches, and so I can make it all the way across, up and down. So that's the reason I picked that size. You'll need a ruler, a pencil, and some sort of marker. It doesn't have to be a Sharpie. I just prefer to use a Sharpie. All right, so like you noticed in the slideshow, first we're going to draw to the two elements that we need in 1-point perspective. So I need to draw a horizon line, and I think I'm gonna put my horizon line, it can be high, which would mean there'll be more of the farm field down here, or you could put it low, and that just means there'll be less farm field and more of everything in the background if I want to do mountains or houses or whatever. So I want less sky and more of my crops. So I'm going to go across this way. So I'm going to draw a straight line. I like to line the edge of my ruler up to the edge of the paper, and that way I know that this is exactly straight. So I'm going to press really hard on this one so you guys can see better. Okay, so I've got my line, my horizon line, and then I need to put a vanishing point. Okay, so my vanishing point, I am actually just going to do it in the middle. So it's just a dot, but it has to be on the horizon line. So the dot can't just be, the vanishing point can't be up here or down here. It has to be on that line. Okay, now I'm going to start to draw some of the rows of my farm field. And remember, in 1-point perspective, everything goes to the point, okay? So I'm gonna do, let's see, a line that will connect the corner of my paper to the vanishing point, like that. I'll do the other side. Let's see. Now this right here, the way I have it right now, this would be neat if I drew some dashed lines down it, and it could be like a road. So if you want to try this project after you're done with the farm field and do some different kind of landscapes, that would be really fun. I think I'm going to do, let's see, divide this into about thirds on this side. Let's see, and a third on this side. I'm just making little hash marks so I know where I want to do my rows in my farm field. I'll do one in the middle, and then I'll do another one in the middle of that. So I'm dividing it into fourths. And I'm just kind of eyeballing it. I'm not really measuring or anything. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect. There we go. I draw from one of my hash marks to my vanishing point. Line up another hash mark to your vanishing point. Draw a line. Let's see, then I have another hash mark over here to the vanishing point. This one to the vanishing point, and I'm going to do this side too. So here we go. Like that. Okay. There you have it. All right, so now I have my rows for my farm field. This is the point where if you want to add like something to the background, maybe I'm going to do a sun, like the sun setting on my farm. I might do a little house up here. And remember, things that are farther away are smaller, right? So would a tree be really huge and go off the paper? Not really, right? It would have to be proportionate to this house. So I'm going to draw a tree here. Let's see. I think I'll leave that. Oh, maybe over here I'll have maybe a little hill or something. Okay, so now I want to start to draw my crops. And we need to pay attention to size. This is really important. Things that are closer to us look bigger. Things that are farther away from us look much smaller. So if I fill this row, if I want to do this row right here with pumpkins, okay, I'm going to draw a pumpkin, and I'm not going to tip the pumpkin on its side, okay? It actually stays straight up and down. So I'm going to draw the pumpkin. Make sure that the side of your pumpkin touches this edge of the row, okay? And then it also has to touch this edge of the row. So pumpkin, let me put the stem on there, like that, okay? Now I'll do another one, and it has to touch the edge of the row. So it touches this edge right here. Then I go over here, it has to touch this edge right there. And I'm going to keep going. And do you see how it's starting to look like there's a lot of space in my art, a lot of distance? Just by making things get smaller and smaller. Size is really important, okay? Now, let's think. What do I want to do for my next crop? Maybe I want to have just the tips of some carrots coming out. Maybe I'll do that one right here. So carrots grow underground. You can't see the actual carrot. You maybe could see just a little bit of it. So maybe I'll just say, like, do a rounded line. That's the tip of the carrot right here. And then this would be the leaves coming up, right? So I'll do a line, my little carrot, and now this one's getting farther away, so I have to pay attention to those leaves getting smaller. So this one, the curved line will have to be smaller. Okay, so I'm really thinking about size as I do this. If I kept them all the same size, would it really look like the carrots are going off into the distance? No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't have that illusion of space. Okay, these will look better once I color them. It's hard to tell what they are right now when they're just in pencil. And so I'm gonna keep going and filling this in, and then I'll get back to you when it's all done. All right, we are back. I've got tons of stuff in my farm field now. I've added some sunflowers, carrots, pumpkins, and then this is my cabbage. And then I repeated some of the things that I have in my field. I changed my mountains. I wanted them to be hills. I made the house that I drew before into a barn instead. And then these areas I'm not going to put anything in because that's just going to be, some of the grass and things surrounding the field. So now that I have that done, do you guys notice that I really tried hard to have some overlapping? So it looks like this tree is in front of the barn. This barn is in front of the silo. I thought about my pine trees over here. This one is bigger. This one's more of like a medium, and then I got even smaller as it was at the top of the hill to show that distance, okay? So it's not just about everything going to the point and 1 point perspective, it's also about size, okay? So really think about that. So now that I have this all done, I'm gonna use my Sharpie. It can be any kind of marker, if you even wanna use a black pen. For my kids that are at home doing this project, that's totally fine. And I'm just going to go really slow over these lines. And then I'm going to start to draw all of my things in there. Now this right here, the carrot is in front of the pumpkin. So I'm going to draw the carrot first right here, go over it, I should say. Okay, and then I'm not going to draw over the carrot because I want this pumpkin to appear like it's behind. Okay, and so I'm really gonna stop and think about my lines. Maybe I'll do this whole row of carrots first, just because there are so many leaves that overlap the pumpkins. And I really wanna make sure that I'm providing that illusion of things being in front and behind. Okay, so if I do the carrot first instead of the pumpkin, it really helps me to think about that. Okay, and then I can go back in there, I can add this line right there. Oh, I'm gonna stop because I want the carrot, the leaves on that, to look like it's in front of that row, like that. Okay, so I'm gonna continue to finish this up. I'm gonna outline everything, and then next we're gonna work on color. All right, welcome back again. Okay, so I've got this all outlined. Use an eraser after you're done and get rid of all those pencil lines that maybe when you outlined you didn't go over everything exactly perfect. I do the same thing. So now we're gonna talk about color really quickly. You can use anything for color. I would not use markers though. Use like crayons or colored pencils, something, just not markers. And I'll tell you why in just a second. So let me grab my orange colored pencil here because I'm gonna show you guys on a pumpkin. So now, when you color in your pumpkin, we wanna make things look more realistic. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a little thing called shading, okay? Shading is just when you have an object that has some light areas and some dark areas. And so we're gonna think about where the sun is hitting our object. And so my pumpkin, I'm gonna shade this in. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna push harder on the outer edge of this pumpkin. And then as I get towards the center, I'm gonna get lighter and lighter and lighter. Okay. And do you see how shading and adding value like that starts to add a little more dimension to this pumpkin instead of it just looking flat? Okay. This can also be done with crayons. So if you're wanting to use crayons, that's totally fine. I can also do the same thing with crayons. I can push hard on this outer edge, and then as I get towards the middle, I just really lighten up on the amount of pressure I'm pushing down. Okay, then when I get back to this edge over here, I push harder, and then I get lighter and lighter towards the middle. Okay, and so I'm going to think about each object and how I want to show some value so that it starts to look either rounded or, you know, just not so flat. Okay, so good luck with color. Have lots of fun coloring this whole beautiful picture in. And then the next step, we'll talk about shadows. Okay, so now we're going to talk about shadows. So I finished coloring my whole picture. This is a different one that I was working on at home, but I wanted to show you guys the shadowing. So think about where your light source is. So my light source is my sun. And so I know that the back side of my crops are going to be bright, and I know that the shadow is actually going to be cast towards me or behind each object, okay? So light source is here. That means the shadow is in front of each plant or crop. So all I did was I tried to make the shadow look like the shape of the object. So your shadow looks like you, just like a pumpkin shadow looks like the shape of a pumpkin, where it has this kind of rounded edge right here. The cabbage is more like a circle. The carrot that I drew here, of course, is mimicking the shape of the carrot. So, and everything could have a shadow. I even did a shadow on my pine trees on my hill. Okay, so think about